Welcome back to my channel at The Movie Optimist, where I find the silver linings in all movies. Tonight I just got done watching the newest film, Love Hurts. This film stars Ke Huy Quan and Ariana DeBose, and essentially, Ke Huy Quan is a real estate agent who sells beautiful homes to newly married couples, and he gets this rush out of it. He talks to a lot of these customers that he has about how when he first bought his first home, he felt this sense of freedom that came with it, and he loves to relive that over and over, and he does that by continuously selling homes to people, and he genuinely loves his job so much. However, one day, an old flame in Ariana DeBose's character comes back into his life asking him for help, where she gets into some trouble with some bad people. Essentially, people are trying to kill her, and she wants him to help her survive. This is where you learn that Ke Huy Quan was actually a retired hitman who used to work for his own brother, and he kind of wanted to retire towards the end of his career, but his brother would never let him. However, his brother promised him, if you do this one last deed and kill Ariana DeBose's character, I'll let you go. But because Ke Huy Quan actually cares about her, he brings her to the spot where he's gonna kill her and pretty much tells her, like, look, you gotta drop off the face of the earth. You gotta pretend like I killed you here. I'll retire, you sail off into the sunset, and that'll be the end of it. But for reasons I won't spoil here, she comes out of hiding, and now the people that are not only trying to kill her, but they realize that he failed in actually doing the job that he said he was gonna do that initially got him into the retirement, and now those people trying to kill her are also trying to kill him. So it's up to him to help both of them survive the night and stop these assassins in their tracks. So what did I think about this movie? I am going to start off with the bad because the good greatly outweighs the bad, in my opinion. Starting off with some nitpicks, there are some occasions that happen in this movie that kind of had me scratching my head. Like, there's a scene where Ke Huy Quan is trying to sell a house to a couple, and an assassin comes there to kill him. And while he's trying to sell the house, he tells the couple to hide in the kitchen while he takes care of this stranger that just came into the house. So he sends him into the kitchen so that he could take care of this assassin out in the living room, but then they slowly both just walk into the kitchen after the people, and in my head I'm like, why'd you tell him to go in there if you were just gonna walk in there right after them? Why wouldn't you, like, lead the guy outside or something? And it's like little inconsistencies like that where they do something and then, like, completely just about face on it, like, half a second later, that I'm like, why'd you do that? But that really is just a nitpick. The biggest glaring problem I have with this movie is the story itself. It really is just as basic as he's living his life, his past catches up to him, and now he's got to right the wrongs of his past. And it's something you've seen 1,000 times. It's the old, just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in story. You've seen it 1,000 times. There is nothing original about this movie, but that's okay. And I'm gonna harken it back to John Wick, because in John Wick, and funny enough, this is the same studio that made John Wick, and that's why I'm also giving it a pass. But in John Wick, it's about a retired hitman who gets a gift of a puppy from his dying wife, something that he can mourn her over with, some kind of companionship. However, one night while he's hanging out with his dog, a bunch of scumbags come into his house to try and rob his car and wind up beating him half to death and murdering his puppy, which sets him off on a warpath of killing everybody that has any association with those people over the course of the entire film. That's the whole movie. It's the dude's dog dies and he wants revenge. It's simple, but the movie gets carried by Keanu Reeves's incredible performance and the incredible choreography and the amazing fight scenes in it with the gun fu and everything. It's the same thing here. It's an incredibly basic story that's uplifted by the performances of both Ke Huy Quan and Ariana DeBose. It's because of them that this movie is enjoyable, and this is what's going to transition into the good parts of the movie that I do like. Ke Huy Quan is a standout here. I mean, ever since his resurgence in Everything Everywhere All at Once, then Loki, he's been on a roll, and I loved him in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and I loved him in Goonies, and I loved him here. He plays that same zany, over-the-top, super bubbly, super happy, really small, energetic guy who also just happens to have this dark past where he's incredibly lethal with his hands. And he has great chemistry with Ariana DeBose, who plays this, like, ex-flame of his, who you don't know if she's good or bad or just using him for her own gain or actually cares about him. And it's that banter between them back and forth that kind of carries the movie. And fortunately, they're in 99% of the movie. So even though the story is mediocre, you still have fun watching Ke Huy Quan interact with Ariana DeBose. And then on top of that, you also get incredible action scenes. Essentially, the movie plays out in three structures. In the first act, it's Ke Huy Quan finds himself in a situation where he has to get himself out of it with violence. In the second act, Ke Huy Quan finds himself in a situation in a different location that he has to get himself out of with violence. And then in the third act, he puts himself in a situation where he has to get somebody else out of it with violence, but it's at this point that there's a shift in character. In the first two acts, he's kind of fighting on the defense. He doesn't really want to hurt these people. He's fighting to survive. Whereas in the last act, and he says it in the trailer, you want the old me, you got it. He goes full beast mode. He fully transitions back into his badass hitman ways, and he just spends 15 minutes killing hundreds of mofos in this shop, and it's really well done. You shouldn't expect anything else, being that it's coming from the same company, 87 North, that's done The Fall Guy, that's done John Wick, that's done Atomic Blonde, that's done the most notorious fight scenes that we've had in the last couple years. The fight scenes and the choreography are all top notch here and a blast. I'm a big sucker for karate movies, for kung fu movies, anything with insane choreographed fight scenes, I'm a sucker for, and they delivered here. So on one hand, yes, the story's kind of basic, but it's saved by the fact that you're just enjoying watching Ke Huy Quan have a blast as a badass in this movie, bouncing off Ariana DeBose, who's also clearly having a blast in this movie. And even with her, she was a standout in this movie. I mean, she is an Oscar-winning actress from West Side Story, and then she was in something as horrible as Craven, which was such a disappointment because I seen what she's capable of in West Side Story, and then I got to see her here having a blast alongside Ke Huy Quan, beating up bad guys, and it was really fun, and she held her own, and she was convincing as an action heroine. So at the end of the day, it's like I said, yeah, the story's basic, but the movie's carried by the performances. And if you like John Wick, I have no doubt that you'll like this movie because it's essentially the same thing. It's just a really fun, hard R action romantic comedy that both the lead stars showed up for, they delivered, and I just had a blast watching. The movie's also only an hour and 23 minutes long, so it never overstays its welcome. You never have long enough to marinate in the plot before it gets to the next action scene where you're having a blast with this epic, bone-crunching, hard-hitting action that's just filmed so well. The director of this movie is previously known for doing stunt work and fight choreography on other movies, so it makes sense that the action is so well filmed here. I really can't recommend it enough if you are a fan of movies like that, like John Wick, like Atomic Blonde, like The Fall Guy, anything that has a lot of over-the-top stunts and kung fu. You get it in spades here. That being said, I'm gonna give this movie an 8 out of 10. I had a surprisingly great time watching this. I laughed a lot. I bought the chemistry between the two of them. I loved the action. Ke Huy Quan is clearly having a blast here, and he's also so charismatic. Is the story a little formulaic and basic? Yes. And are there some stupid decisions in terms of like a script standpoint where characters are doing silly things like bringing the violence to people that they're trying to save? Yes. But it didn't hinder it enough to lower the score drastically. I still had a really good time. Anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did I give you a reason to go see this movie this weekend? If I have, let's talk about it. If I haven't, let's talk about it. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll catch you next time.